Good morning, Dr. Schovanec.
Good morning, Dave. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning.
So we had a little snow, and it did kind of put a kink in some of the plans out at Texas Tech. I think you had a commencement scheduled, and
Well, the commencement's this weekend, but so Saturday morning, got up to that beautiful snow, and I drove onto the campus. There were a lot of students on campus having a great time.
Yeah.
But
I guess there were a few snowball fights.
and other, snowmen and stuff being made. But it was we did cancel finals that day and deferred them to Sunday. But even so, on Sunday there were some issues early in the morning. But I think this is the second time that we could find out that finals had been disrupted because of weather, and it's a complicated process. We had a meeting yesterday to review what we did. We could do things better, and we will.
Now, does the city clear your streets, or is that
We're responsible for.
so? You have your own snow clearing.
Yeah, it's amazing how much equipment we have.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well, it's a big campus.
it is.
A lot of streets.
It is. But we get through it, and that kind of snow's not going to happen very often.
Yeah. Well, we want to talk about Lime scooters, as we were talking off mic back a few weeks ago when the issue came up. There, I don't recall a time when we had more response from listeners that were angry about the scooter situation. For goodness sakes.
Yeah, but they're not mad at Texas Tech. They're mad at the city on that one.
Well, one of your listeners, a good friend of mine, Marcy, if you're out there, thank you. She said they're going to come after you tomorrow. Be prepared. So I actually did I tried to get my facts straight on this. And I think what I'd like to share is, if you look around campuses, and we looked at other universities, there are plenty of places that don't even allow scooters. Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, Texas State. Arizona. They're in the process of deciding how to manage this. And so what Tech did last spring is they were surveying the students to see what they wanted. And there's this concept of shared mobility services. They want bikes they can share. Those are, just pedal bikes. And so we wanted to get a company on campus that could provide the services the students requested. And so they issued a request for proposals last spring. One Lime responded, but the other company did not respond. And so they decided to go with Lime. And part of the reason was safety. They laid out a plan where they were going to put money into a safety campaign. They were going to put money into helmets. They're going to change some of the technology on those bikes, put bigger wheels on them. And so I could understand why some people would think somehow we're infringing on the concept of free market capitalism. And I asked the CFO, I said, if both companies had submitted a proposal, would it have been possible that both would be operating on campus? And she said yes. And in fact, that's what's going on at the University of Texas. You have both Bird and Lime down there. But, one point I want to make is I'm a free market guy. Back in when I was interim president, we started the Free Market Institute. So don't think we're trying to infringe upon competitiveness here. But when you have to make a decision about safety versus complete free market issues, we're going to err on the side of safety. We have to make sure that
so the Bird scooter just wasn't as safe as the Lime.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is they didn't respond with any. They didn't respond to the request for proposals, and
it appears that with Bird, safety wasn't a big issue then.
Well, I'm not saying because of their lack of response to the request for proposals. I'm not going to say they're not concerned about safety.
So you actually only had one company at all respond when y'all asked for proposals.
Only one response.
And so that's how we wound up with.
That's how we wound up with them. But also, we were asking for a company that could provide pedal bikes, e-bikes. Those are assisted pedal bikes, and then the scooters. And Lime probably was the only company that met those requirements. So that may be why Bird didn't respond, and I don't know the exact reasons, but they didn't respond.
Okay. So I think I read an article, but did Lime lower the speed on the bike, the scooters?
Matt, I don't know that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. But as I mentioned earlier, as part of their safety program, it was mentioned they're going to put larger wheels on the bike. I think that somehow is safer. And they're going to double down on rider safety. They have this $3 million campaign they promised. They also provided money to TAC for bike racks and parking areas for those scooters. And one thing you have to keep in mind is we are a controlled environment, and we do that to manage issues that relate to traffic and to safety. And so it's not unusual that anybody that's going to come onto campus is going to have to go through a vetting process. Right now, we're in conversations with Amazon and FedEx about how we manage the distribution of products they may bring onto campus, where we'll be the last mile of that delivery system. And we don't do that to infringe on the free market, but we have to be concerned about who's on campus. Are we doing background checks on those that are on campus? And safety is in traffic control.
Okay.
So I didn't mean to go into my speech mode, but I kind of did.
That's fine. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with the final segment this Tuesday morning. News Talk, 95.1 FM and 790 AM. This is KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. And again, back with Dr. Schovanec, president of Texas Tech University.
So one question we were going to ask is Texas Tech receiving any money from Lime?
We get no money for the scooters, but when the shared bikes are on campus, that's what they can check out.
They're not there yet.
They're not there. We'll get 20% of that profit, whatever that is. I mean, 20% of that revenue. So I don't know what that will be, but I don't expect it.
So it'll be a charge to ride the bicycle too?
Right, when you check those out.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, at some campuses, like where my son went, you could just pick one up. It was a smaller campus. But here, you have to control it. As we were mentioning, we were off the air. I received a letter from a mother whose daughter has MS. She wrote me Sunday night to say the problem the scooters were presenting to her daughter when she couldn't navigate the her wheelchair because they're left on the sidewalks and things like that.
Well,
so those are issues we have to deal with.
And it's not just going to be her. It's going to be anybody that has a wheelchair or some kind of disability.
That's right. So you have to control that, and that's part of the reason that we go through a vetting process. We issue a request for proposals. And as for the city, we inform them of what they are going to do, but I can assure you we didn't tell the city what to do. Do you really think Dan Pope would listen to me anyway?
A good point, I guess. Vet school.
Right. That's a big issue.
That's a big issue, isn't it?
It is, but it's not the only issue as we go into the session. Last week, Dr. Mitchell and I were traveling around the state talking to members of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board because there's two aspects to this. One, you have to secure the funding from the legislature, and then we have to get it through the coordinating board. And it's common knowledge that that John Sharp, in his opposition to this, well, I guess I should say it's what we hear, that they're going to try to influence the decision at the level of the coordinating board. So we were encouraged by our meetings with members of the coordinating board. They're going to make the decision based on the facts. It will go to a subcommittee of staffers who will secure an outside firm to look at the proposal, and then before it goes to the full board. Now, I think it's encouraging if you look at what happened at Sam Houston State recently when they were approved for a DO school. And they went against the recommendation of the commissioner. And so we've talked to people who are involved in that process. They used the same kind of strategy. It was very encouraging when Speaker Bonham was here last week. I wasn't here that day. I was at Austin College. We're working on a proposal to start teaching courses on that campus. But from everybody I spoke to, they were very impressed by him. He's a person who's driven by data and the facts, and he openly expressed his support for the concept of the vet school. Last week, we were in Amarillo to accept a gift from the Harrington Foundation for the vet school, for scholarships, and while there, visited with Representative Price and Representative Smithy. They're great advocates for this. They're very optimistic about how things look going into the session, and they feel good about the new speaker. So I think we're in relatively good shape in both the House and the Senate, and we'll have to make sure that we're very well prepared to make our case to the coordinating board. But we've been assured by those we have visited with that we're going to get a very professional and unbiased hearing.
Okay, and the former Chancellor Bob Duncan, is he still working
Yes.
with y'all with that, trying to get that through?
Yes, Chancellor Duncan will be helping us in Austin. We also have a consultant. And so I just received an email yesterday from the system office that we've rented an apartment because we're going to be there so much. So we're going to be, as Ted's made this point time and again, that all hands on deck. We're going to depend on our alumni. We're going to depend on legislators, any supporters. That if you look at what happened in Amarillo, Jason Herrick, who's an A&M graduate, heads up the fundraising committee. The support there is not restricted to Texas Tech. It's about a need and about opportunities for students who want to pursue a degree in veterinary medicine.
So something else that happened, I don't guess it was really that big of a deal, but y'all hired a new head coach over at the football program.
That's right. I feel really good about the man that was identified by Kirby Hocutt. At the same time, I think everybody in this community knows how much we cared for and appreciated Coach Cliff Kingsbury.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but it sounds like he's going to land on his feet. He'll be in good shape. He's a very smart guy.
He's a very smart man. He's a very good man, and those values are appreciated. So at the same time, I think Cliff would have liked to have spent his whole life at Tech. And to have somebody who wants to do that's pretty neat. So that was not easy. My son had worked for him, and I would say that one of the best recommendations you can get about a person is when your own son speaks to his character and his qualities, and he loved Cliff Kingsbury. It was hard, but as Kirby has said, he wants this program to be elite. We needed the leadership that could pursue a vision to get us there, and that means winning and winning the right way. And Matt Wells is a guy who's going to do it. I don't know if you saw the press conference, but he did a great job.
Yeah.
People are going to like him.
Well, and Coach Wells brought pretty much his whole staff.
He did. Well, yeah, his defensive coordinator and his offensive coordinator are highly respected. I think it was 6 or 7 other guys. And maybe you've already seen in the paper, I saw an article this morning that, and Kirby occasionally will update me on that, some of those who decommitted have recommitted, and they're going out and getting some other guys. They're going to do well.
Yeah.
How about that basketball team?
Right. I can't wait for next week to go to New York City and watch them play Duke.
It's a big game.
Yeah. It's interesting.
So you're going to go to New York City tomorrow.
Well, I am going tomorrow.
And then home and then back the next week?
People, right. There's this event that they hold at the Harvard Club in Manhattan where they invited some presidents, maybe a half a dozen or so, to come in and talk about issues in higher ed. I'd rather poke my eye out with a stick than go there tomorrow. But I think when you're invited to do that, you should go. And so it's a chance to represent Texas Tech. I'm going to fly out tomorrow. The event is tomorrow night. Then I fly back the next morning for our board meeting.
You going to take the private plane?
No. I am. Yeah, I'm not. I'm catching that 6:30 flight out of LaGuardia and hope I make it back for the board meeting.
If you don't make it back, you'll be like, oh, darn, I missed the board meeting.
I got to tell you, we've spent when we were traveling last week, I sent a note to Grace Hernandez, my chief of staff, arranging a conference call with Ted the day we got back from being down at McAllen, where we visited Dr. Fred Farias, who's on the coordinating board. And I said, I meant to say, let Ted know the call's going to be at 12:30. But the spell checker wrote, I told Grace that tell Teddy the call will be at 12:30, and she wrote me and said, "You're spending way too much time with Ted."
I know we're running low on time, but right now Texas Tech has elite sports programs all over the place.
We do.
Most of these coaches were hired by Holcutt, and now you've got this new coach coming to the football. Are you expecting? Y'all have high expectations.
We do, and somebody told me that they're putting buttons that say "I trust Kirby," and I think that's pretty good advice.
We are heading to a hard break. It's so always glad to have you out, Dr. Skibney.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.